Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. And wow, Kaiju number 8, chapter 38, just stabbed me in the heart, why don't ya? Oh my goodness, Okay, so this is a wonderful chapter. This is going to be the spoiler-free review. I am going to try very, very hard to avoid all spoilers. And just as the previous chapter was all fighting and very little dialogue, and so there was very little I could say without giving spoilers, this chapter has the exact opposite problem. It's mostly dialogue, or even just quiet scenes where nothing happens with no dialogue, and a lot happens in a very short amount of time, and oh my goodness, this chapter is exactly what I was hoping it would be. I was so afraid that, again, no spoilers, this is going to be so difficult. Okay, so what are the highlights of this chapter? Kafka Hibino's emotional vulnerability being portrayed as a strength and not a weakness. What do I mean by that? In so many creative endeavors, people try to create conflict, both artificial and real within the context of the story, through having people hide things from each other. And oftentimes it seems contrived. And one of the biggest things that they hide are their emotional reactions. And they do this because it is real. It is true to life. Nobody likes... Well, what's the phrase? The unbearable burden of being known. Nobody likes to let people into their emotions. There are couples who have been lovingly married for 60 years who still won't expose the deepest levels of their souls to each other. That is personal. That is private. Getting to know the other person's soul, their hearts, their desires is intimate on a very fundamental level. And so it is perfectly natural that many creators write scenes where characters keep things from each other, not to hide any facts or details, but to not expose their vulnerabilities. But that is not who Kafka Hibino is, and that is one of the reasons that we love him. We see him in this chapter, and there's current moment times and there's past moment times, and he just exposes his heart, his core, his emotional soul to people who I really, in no sense of the ways, have earned it, and it's not shown as a weakness. This isn't a scene where the character breaks down sobbing and everybody sees what's going on in their emotions. No, this is much deeper than that. This is coming from a position of strength despite the situation. This man is so strong that he doesn't care who sees into the depths of his soul. And it's like there is a concept. When in art class, yes, even though I'm a science major, I had to take an art class. It was painful. It was excruciating. You didn't even have to tell the teacher when you left the lab, studio, and we just weren't used to that. I think all of us science majors freaked out the teacher because we kept asking permission to go to the bathroom, and she's like, "You're adults." I'm like, "Well, what if something explodes?" And she's like, "This is art class, not chemistry class." So, but anyway, in art class, what I learned was that there are different reasons to portray nudity in art. And one of the classic reasons to portray nudity, especially in classical art where you're portraying gods, demigods, Hercules, Thor, Athena, was a sign of power. Because Venus was a goddess, it didn't matter if she was naked. She was so powerful that it compensated for the vulnerability. And in most societies, clothing is to protect our vulnerability. Just as we keep our mouths closed to protect our emotions, we cover our bodies to protect our physical vulnerability. Sunburn, ticks, fleas, thorns, thistles. And when a character is going around naked while fighting bulls, you can assume he's super powerful and he does not need that armor to protect him from the horns of the bulls or the thorns or the thistles. Like a character going barefoot means you have very strong feet. And so in this story we have seen so many times in the past, Kafka is willing to expose his emotions to people. Not just his surface level emotions, but the deep ones, the ones that you generally don't share with people, sometimes not even your closest associates, your mother, your father, your lover. And there's just an example of that in this chapter that is so beautiful, and you can see it really takes the other characters aback. And I'm trying so hard to avoid spoilers, but oh my goodness, this chapter was amazing. Okay, and I am going to get so many different videos out of this once I start going into the spoilers. There is so much information on every page. I've only read it once so far, and I know I missed a ton. But there were some major world building drops. There were some major emotional beats. Everything was just laid out, laid bare. It was super satisfactory, and I thought I was just thinking of saying that it doesn't end on a cliffhanger, that this is a really good way to wrap up several story arcs, but then I realized that no, it does end on a cliffhanger. The cliffhanger just comes so out of the blue, and I wasn't expecting it, that my brain mentally separated it from the rest of the chapter. So you have kind of like the conclusion to one arc, and then you realize that there's a whole bunch of arcs out there that aren't finished. We're just not focusing on them at the moment. And so this was an exquisite chapter. This chapter alone would have made reading any other number of chapters worth it. And the one thing that I really took away from this chapter that's not a spoiler is how well the artist has been dropping hints about the larger world, so that you feel that this is just what you're focusing on, but there's so much stuff going on around you. And the author does that, the artist does that, by it tells a super hyper-focused story. So you're totally focused on one thing, then they show a panel and it feels like you turned around and just noticed somebody quietly standing there beside you. And it makes perfectly sense that they've been there this entire time, you just didn't notice them before. And there's some real big beat drops in this chapter where you turn around and, oh, you're there. That makes perfectly sense. Within the context of the story, I would have expected you to be there if I'd thought about it, but I was so focused on this part of the story that I didn't think about it. And it's one of those tricks, like drawing in the illusion of 3D. This creator is writing to craft an illusion of a world that is bigger, and the creator does this by dropping these parts into the story that make you turn around and go, oh, I didn't see you there, but it makes sense that you were there. And I will go into all of those details as soon as I can start to do spoilers. Kaiju number 8, chapter 38. Chef's kiss! Wonderful chapter. All right, if you want something to hold you over until next week when the next chapter, the final chapter in the 3-chapter arc drops before we go on break, Go check out the links below the video. Humans Are Weird. I Have the Data, a book of human absurdity. I hope to be interviewing after the last chapter drops that Friday. I hope to be talking to Dan Exclaims and Grim Saber again, because I know we are all just vibing after this last chapter, and we can't wait to get together and talk about it. So, Humans Are Weird. I Have the Data, a book of human absurdity. Dying Embers, dragons, aliens, and things that go boom for the night. One of those is a comedy, one is a tragedy. Be careful which one you read on public transportation. Peace out, my wonderful viewers.
The book from author Betty Adams, Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, is a humorous look at human behavior through the eyes of aliens. This book is arranged in separate reports or essays, documenting the experiences with humanity through the lens of the aliens who have to interact with them. This anthology of short stories and vignettes from alien points of view highlights some of humanity's quirks we can all relate to. Author Betty Adams captures how strange and interesting humans can really be. This is a fun collection of stories you will really get a kick out of. Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, from author Betty Adams. Order your copy right now on Amazon.